All right. I shot some videos a couple weeks ago before the last tournament on our drivers, our woods, and long irons. And the long irons, I actually could go back and shoot another video. I went back and played with a Goliath for a whole day just to see, because I had never played with a Goliath and I didn't like it. And I didn't like it not because the club didn't have the stuff, it's because of where the red lines were. And so how I like to take shots, it was affecting I was having to relearn some stuff, and I wanted to do it the other way. But on short irons, we're going to start off with the Apache. And this is what an Apache looks like once it gets maxed out. So if you're like looking at it and going like, what's it going to look like versus a claw, which just being a common, and overall, it's probably one of the better short irons. I mean, like overall, when the Falcon gets up there, you can see what's not maxed out on the Falcon versus a claw. The Falcon's going to have more power, probably around the same, but a little bit more. It's going to have similar accuracy. Top spin, it's going to have more. Backspin, it's going to have a little less, but it's still going to have more. It's probably, go look at the Falcon, see where it's going to be at once it gets maxed out up there. Golf Clash Notebook is they're updating their stuff and they're back on. Yay! So when a Falcon gets maxed out backspin, it's got 78 backspin versus our 97, but that's quite a bit. It's going to have the same amount of curl and ball guide. I think it's actually going to have more ball guide. It's going to pick up some ball guide when it gets up there. So 4.2. So 88 power, 75 accuracy versus 75 accuracy. So the accuracy is going to be the same. So if the accuracy is the same and it's got any stats that are better than the club, then it's a better club, especially the ball guide. So if you get this up and it's maxed out, it will be the club. The Falcon will be probably the short iron you have in your bag in a lot of cases. The Hornet is my go-to because of the 96 accuracy. I know that if they would let us use the extra club cards that we have for certain clubs, I mean, my vote would be that club card is for the Hornet, and I have extra club cards, and the Hornet maxed out at 400 cards. So I'd have to get 800 cards for the Hornet in order to max it out again to take it to level 9. And instead of getting a whole bunch of stats at level 9, I get like 5 points that I could put anywhere I want. I would max that accuracy out and put it right at 100. That'd be step number 1. I mean, other than that, this club, I would, from that point on, if I got more on it, I'd probably put on backspin and try and get more backspin on it so that I could catch it up to one of the clubs. But the claw overall is a great club. So my transition, I used the Kingfisher going up. If you're lower level, the Kingfisher, even at level 3, which I think my other account, I think the accuracy pretty much stays at 88, and that's an early club that you get. So when we look at the clubs up here in the order that you get on the Apache, as fast as you can, as soon as you get a Kingfisher, I mean, look at your Apache at level, by the time you get from level 1 to level 2 and get a Kingfisher, and you may have this up to level 2, maybe level 3. So let's be generous and say you had it to level 4. So power 89, that's helping you out a little bit. There are some things that the Kingfisher is lacking. So if you're playing in tournaments, sometimes you'll have to switch it up because you'll be in between clubs because of the distance. So the distance is a big weakness of the Kingfisher. But as a rookie, where you're just starting off and you got super low level clubs, the second line accuracy at when it's low level at 69 versus accuracy of 17 at the best with your Apache. As soon as I get a Kingfisher, even probably at level 1, because most of the time when you're using your short iron, especially once you get your clubs developed, most of the time you're engaging your short iron with just a little teeny bit of backspin. Maybe 1, 2, maybe 3, but you can work it out with the 1 backspin, but just a little teeny bit of backspin, and you're not engaging it with topspin. So not having any topspin in most cases won't hurt you. But there are some holes, depending on where you end up. So if you're in tournaments, you're bringing out bigger balls, and you may end up in a spot where, here's the green, and you're trying to engage the cup right here, and you can't quite get to it, and you need just a little bit of topspin, and you don't have any until you get to level 5. So you can't quite get there, and you're in between clubs, and because it hits short, and then with your long iron, and it's one of the reasons, if you've got a Goliath, it hits way out here, and a Saturn and a Backbone hit back from that, 10 yards? I mean, it's quite a ways. I think it's 135 versus like 120, maybe 125, maybe 129 when they're maxed out. So it hits for, I think, most of its life somewhere in at least 10 yards farther than a Backbone and a Saturn. So it's way up here. And then you've got a Kingfisher, which is your next club. So you're pulling that long iron back. Well, here's its red line, and then here's your Kingfisher, and you got this huge red line. But up here on your next club, there's no red line at all. I mean, like literally one instant you're in Goliath and the next instant you're in wood. And there's not enough where you can kind of like slide it across the red line, or you can, and feel it across there's no red line. That's one of the reasons why with playing with it with a day, I didn't like that feel up there. But depending on the long iron that you bring, it's going to make this a lot bigger. So if you've got lower developed clubs, and as you're going up the scale, if your long iron is a Saturn and your short iron is a Kingfisher, your Saturn's not going to hit that far. So you're going to be able to tighten up those red lines. So if you did get in a situation where you can't use your Kingfisher because you don't have any topspin and it won't roll up, that you can't get it to the hole, you can use your Saturn because it has a lot of backspin, and you can stick it at the hole. So the Kingfisher will hurt you for a while until you get a Saturn, but as far as accuracy, this is a great club to have in your bag. The reason that these upper developed clubs, as we get through this, and these upper developed clubs are so much better, is because of two things: ball guide and accuracy. And within a couple, you start off with 2.3 ball guide versus 2.1 if you get this Apache to level 4. And it doesn't get any higher than 2.9. And I mean, that's deep into it. By then you've got other stuff. So if you're playing down there at the bottom, you'll get your Kingfisher to level 2 or 3 pretty quick. Once you get to level 2, you jump up to 2.7. I mean, and the accuracy jumps up just a little bit more. This is actually not a bad club to use when you're at lower level, but it does have some deficiencies. And the deficiency is that topspin right here until you get to level 5. That's a big goose egg. That's why you have to really kind of match this up with your short iron or with your long iron so that you can get those red lines right. Your next choice here, and let's go look at it when they're maxed out. It looks different when you're in here. Maxed out claw, I'll take that as like the standard because I don't have a maxed out Falcon, so I can't show that one. So a runner. And there are times when with the runner, you got pretty good distance. If we're comparing it to the Kingfisher, let me select the Kingfisher. So if we're comparing these two, I got a level 6 Kingfisher here. So I've got it up to the point where I've got some accuracy, and I finally got some topspin. But looking against a level 10 runner, I got pretty good distance. So that means I'm going to match up really good with long irons. Accuracy at 66. 2 out of 3 ain't bad, right? So, I mean, that's not the best accuracy in the world, but that's pretty good accuracy. You got lots of topspin. You've got that little teeny bit of backspin that you need. You got great ball guide, and you've got some curl. So there'll be times when you're playing, and even when these are lower level, there'll be times when you're playing tournament holes and you go, man, my Kingfisher's just not getting it done on that hole. I need, where I'm ending up, I need just a little teeny bit of topspin with my short iron. Otherwise, I'm having to use my backspin club, and it doesn't work as well on that hole. I need that little teeny bit. Switch to the runner. Because the runner, even at lower levels, it's not a club that you want to take with you all the time just for the accuracy. But on certain holes, it will split the difference. I mean, you'll be able to get it done with it because it has a lot of topspin right from the get-go. And it has pretty good ball guide from the get-go. So our next choice, once you get into Tour 4, now you're starting to get into the clubs where, these are the clubs that you're going to be using throughout your career, no matter how high up the scale you go. When you start getting into the Thorn, and if we look at a maxed out Thorn versus a Claw, I'll select the Claw. And for me, there's a lot of times in tournaments where I have the choice where it's a backspin shot. You need to bring a backspin short iron. the Hornet's not going to get it done. There's a couple holes that a lot of people only engage, or the mass majority of people only engage with backspin, that I will bring my Hornet to, because it's a safer shot, and I have it figured out with my Hornet, and I don't have to, and it's close to sand. But for the most part, if you've got backspin, excuse me, most people are going to bring a thorn. But I like to bring my claw if it's maxed out, because it has better accuracy. That 75 accuracy, that pure number of 75, I've had a lot of success with my claw. And I played with my claw for a long, long time. It's only been probably year and a half, year and a few months that watching some videos from Zachary Jones, and I decided to try out the Hornet and got used to it and figured out numbers for my Hornet. And I've had a lot of success with my Hornet. But when I go to a backspin club, I almost always grab the claw once it gets maxed out, because of the accuracy. And right there at the end, it gets that last little bit of everything. So at 97 backspin versus 100, it's negligible. And if you're using a claw, I'm typically using it because I want the backspin, and the ball guide doesn't really matter if you're using backspin. So once you start maxing a club out that's this deep into backspin, that ball guide, you're only going to see a couple bounces. Maybe a little teeny tail after that, but you're not going to see this little trailing stuff on that backspin shot. It just won't be there. And so overall, I think the claw is a better utility club. So if you're playing a lot of one-on-one, a claw is a great club to have, because it's got fairly good distance for a short iron. It's got great accuracy. It's got great topspin. It's got great backspin. It's got great curl. It's got good ball guide. And so there's a lot of things that you can get done with this short iron in your bags if you're playing upper developed stuff. So, if you get on that hole and you need to scramble, or if you're in the right spot, you can do this club. You can run it in, you can backspin it in, you can do all kinds of stuff with it. I like the claw versus the thorn. But before you get the claw, the thorn instantly becomes your backspin club. I mean, it is the backspin club. So your whole goal of getting to Tour 4 is so that you can get this thorn. It is the most important club to get in Tour 4, just because of that backspin. And it'll obviously, you're going to get more, you're going to max out this claw way before you max out that thorn. Because the claws, once you get into Tour 6 and 7 and above, if you decide that you want to go to max trophies, or if you're just playing Tour 7, 8, 9, you're wherever you decide that you're comfortable at, and you're playing those levels, you're going to get a ton of claws versus thorns. So you'll max that claw fairly quick if you're playing the upper level stuff. But once you get that claw or that thorn, and you're on Tour 4, if you've got a lower developed counter, if you've got a new counter, if you've never played before, that thorn is a big addition to your bag, because now there's a lot of those holes that you have suffered on that you can now engage. Once you get to Tour 5, you're looking at the Hornet, and it becomes a toss-up. Once you're going to be working on your thorn and your Hornet kind of at the same time. Your thorn, maybe you'll get a few more cards for, and so it'll get developed just a little bit faster because you were playing Tour 4 first. But if we take these two clubs here and compare them when they get maxed out, power's about the same. The thorn is a little bit more powerful. Accuracy, the Hornet's definitely got it beat. Topspin, Hornet's got it beat. So if you're in one of those situations where you need to run it forward, which I hardly ever have to engage a bunch of topspin on the Hornet, because if I get to the point where I have to use topspin, I break the line because it hits 88. The red line between it and my Saturn is so small that I can flip over to my Saturn and I can use my Saturn and backspin it and still have room. Because if I was so far away that I needed to put on topspin, that means that I'm in my Saturn range. I'm just trying to get it done with my Hornet. I just didn't quite make it into my Hornet range. Because I always think of my Hornet as having to have at least a little bit of backspin. Sometimes I hit it flat because you're right there without any movement at all, no topspin, no backspin. But I usually like to engage just a little bit of backspin. But if you're on one of those holes, backspin is the one, in my opinion, is the thorns one. It's not a one-trick pony because it does have great ball guide and stuff. But overall, I can get a lot of stuff done with this Hornet that just from accuracy that I don't like. I'm going to stay with the Hornet. But as you're going up, though, these will become your 2 back and forth clubs, because you're going to find a lot of those holes up there. You're going to play with the thorn and the hornet, and you're going to get to choose which one of them you really like the best. So find, my numbers for the hornet are 1.1 if I'm at max club, 1.9 if I'm at mid, and 2.2 if I'm at minimum. And the thorn hits at max club at 57. So I would play it at 1.9. What's that math work out to? 1.9 and 1.9 times. Let me get a calculator here. My brain's not working. Calculator. 1.9 times 1.75. That's 3.3 at mid. And 2.0 would be 3.8 at max. That's how I'd hit it. That's how I'd start and see if the numbers that I use for my hornet, the same math I use for my hornet, works for my thorn. So I'd hit a 1.9, 3.3, and 3.8. That's 1.9 times 1.75, 75% more accurate when it's in mid club. So that's 3.3. It's 100% more accurate when it's in minimum club. So that's 3.8. That's how I play those. But you have to find your numbers. That works for me. But that might not work for a thorn. The thorn might be slightly off because this is the numbers game. So we got a 57. Our thorn's 57 accurate. So is it really closer to 55 accurate, or is it a little more accurate club than you think, and it's actually hitting at a 60? So, because when you're doing the quick math out in the field, the 0.2, if you got, in this case, it would be 1.9 and be 1.8 and some change, or no, it'd be 1.9 and some change. It would be 1.8 and some change. It'd be a little more accurate, or a little less accurate. It'd be a little more accurate than 1.9. That's what's confusing about this stuff. It's a little more accurate than 1.9, but it's not quite as accurate as 1.8. That's what I meant. And so do you play it at a 1.8 or do you play it at 1.9? I played it at 1.9, but you might go out there and it's constantly off. It's just like you're never quite as good with your thorn as you are with some other club. And it may be because of that one. And so you think, oh, that one doesn't make a big difference. Well, if it doesn't make a big difference, then just go out there and hit 3 on every club, 3 per ring, and see if it makes a difference. Now, a little bit can make a difference, especially when you're in short iron range and you're down there where you got those little teeny rings. So if you're in mid club, it'll throw you off. So you have to work those numbers. I think that the hornet plays at 1.1, and it does. I mean, at 96, but I would really like, if I could put points in it, I'd really like to get it up to 100, because I think at 100, it played 100. All right, when you get to Tour 6, you're going to get the claw, and the claw is definitely worth upgrading, and it's definitely it will become your utility club, because what you'll find is that when you've got lower developed thorns, and have you noticed that I've quit talking about the upper tour clubs, the upper tier clubs? That's because they no longer exist. You're maybe for just a short period of time. Hold on one second. Let's go play a match. I'll be back. Let's go play a match. One of my teammates wants to play. Let's go play a match. I'm sitting here talking. No, yes. You're in 7th. Made a big jump. Made a big jump in the bracket after that last tournament. Let's go check this thorn out. So when you got this at lower levels, you have your thorn. Once you get your thorn, the game, I mean, it really is a game changer when you're lower level, because it starts off with 75 backspin. So there's stuff that you can get done that you weren't able to get done before. What's deficient on it is this right here. I mean, that's a big bad number, because you've been using your Kingfisher, and your Kingfisher has 65 accuracy to start off with, and you've already got that club. Now, see the 0 topspin? That thorn's not going to help you out with that. So the only way you can engage your thorn is if you can actually get with, it's got a little more distance at 81 versus 75. So it does have a little teeny bit more distance than the Kingfisher, but not a lot. And if you've been in spots where you needed that top spin, you won't be able to carry this club in your bag all the time, because when you're doing, okay, so here's the pin, and you're back here with your short iron, you're coming in, and here's the first bounce, and you're trying to get to the hole. So a lot of times what you're going to find yourself in is where you don't need to put on any topspin. You don't need to run it out here. You can engage it with just a little teeny bit of backspin. So the accuracy is going to play into it. Where you're hitting a full backspin shot, you're coming in and you're landing right here and you're trying to bring it back to the hole, or you're trying to stop it right at the cup or get it to almost like a dunk. And these shots, you tend to end up being very close. That's why if you use backspin clubs, you'll win a lot of one-on-ones, because you're always close when you hit those shots. But you're always close. And it goes in occasionally, but you're always just close, because you don't really have a lot of control over where it's going to go. Once it hits and you got all that backspin on there, it's going to do whatever it's going to do. And sometimes you can figure that path out and get lucky, and sometimes it's just always close. So you won't want to bring this club, because in order to get into that backspin where you have max backspin, it shortens the distance between this bounce and the pin. And so when you come in, here's the pin. You come in, here's your first bounce. You're going to be closer here. Your other shot, because you were only using 1 or 2, is back here. So in order to engage all that backspin, you have to get closer to the cup. And so that's about as much distance extra that you got. That's 6 yards. And probably somewhere in that range. So it does allow you to get close. So if you're short at all, you won't be able to, and with no topspin, it's kind of the same thing. So the thorn is going to be one of those clubs where you'll carry it in your bag. You'll have it in bags. So like, hey, when I get on that, maybe you've got a bag set up and the only thing different in this bag is the thorn. Or maybe this bag's got a thorn and a Saturn, and this bag's got a Kingfisher and a backbone, or more, your more accurate stuff. But if you bring the thorn, you have to be close enough to engage that backspin to make it super effective, because you got no topspin and you don't have any accuracy. So if you're really trying to guide it up in there, this isn't the club to bring, because it doesn't have accuracy. And it's only got 2.3 ball guide. But your Kingfisher at this point also has 2.3, so hopefully you get it up to 2.7. Accuracy. Ball guide's big. Hornet. Once you get a Hornet, where is a Hornet when it starts off? See, this is the deal between the thorn and the Hornet. So the thorn, you're probably going to have the level 2 or 3 before you get the Hornet. Somewhere in that neighborhood. It'll be a little bit ahead of it. So let's say you had it, let's be generous and say you had it to level 3. So 83 power versus 79. 43 accuracy versus 78. So now we're back to the Kingfisher. We're back up. We're not quite as accurate as where our Kingfisher is, but now we've got accuracy and we've got a little more distance. And what we got right off the bat was 20 topspin. So if you were still using your Kingfisher, the second you get a Hornet, even if your Kingfisher was level 3 up here, or you're getting that 83 accuracy, you still don't have any topspin. And even if you have it to level 4, you still don't have any topspin. So even though you have just a little teeny bit more accuracy between 83 and 88, once you get a Hornet, this Hornet can kind of take its spot almost immediately. With the 79 power, the 78 accuracy, 20 topspin, 20 backspin. It's not quite as much backspin as you had up there, but typically you only have to engage these holes with your short iron with just a little teeny bit of backspin. It's got a little bit of curl, but normally when you're short iron, if you're in a spot where you're having to scramble if you're having to use curl with your short iron, you are scrambling because you obviously didn't hit the ball to where you wanted, because where you wanted should have been like a straight in shot. You hardly ever will, unless you're scrambling, ever have to engage curl. It's not that big of a factor. The ball guide is, and you'll get this Hornet up pretty quick to level 3 and 4 when you get to these tours. And once you get it to level 3, then you bump that accuracy up to 1.2 per ring. And you've picked up a little bit of topspin. The ball guide is the big jump. Anytime you have a level on a club, for me, when you see accuracy and ball guide, that's a good level right there. I don't think we have that again on this club. So that's the spot is level 3. I mean, when it gets to level 3, it gets 91 accuracy and 2.7 ball guide. So it becomes a pretty decent club right then. So you're going to play a lot of the game, the middle part of this game, where you're using your thorn and your hornet, and you're going to kind of swap between them. And you'll continue to do that. Let's go back to short irons here. It's going to time me out. You go back. So you'll continue to kind of swap between those two clubs as you get them developed until you can get that claw up in levels. And that claw doesn't take off like a rare does. A lot of these rares, let's go into the clubs here so we can see what it looks like when it's maxed. So you can see the drastic difference between, let's go straight down to short irons. So when a claw is maxed out, I mean, that's a lot of stuff. I mean, it looks good all over the place. I mean, there's not a lot that you can't get done with it. If you get on one of those holes and it's backspin, you can use backspin. If you get on one of those holes where you need topspin, it's got topspin. Or if you ended up short or you were scrambling, you got lots of curl. You got lots of everything. I mean, at 75, it's pretty accurate. So there's a lot of stuff that you can get done with your claw. So once you start working on your thorn and your hornet, you're pretty much not going to use the lower tier of your clubs anymore. They're going to be, you're not going to have to use them once you get your thorn and your hornet up to like level 3 and 4. Then you're pretty much done with that upper tier. And what you're waiting for is when you get to tour 6 and you get that claw up. So as the claw goes up in levels, this is going to be, I like the claw. I still like it. And like I said earlier, whenever it calls for a thorn, I use a claw. So starting off at 76 power, which is kind of in that Kingfisher range, so that's not good power. It has 0 topspin. By this point, we've already got our hornet and our thorn, and it's unacceptable to have 0 topspin. So for the first 3 levels, it's not even in consideration. We're still working on our thorn and our hornet. When it gets to level 4, it's picked up a little distance. It's picked up a little accuracy, but it's still not as accurate as either one of the other clubs that I have at this point. And that topspin doesn't compare to either one. The backspin is more in line at this point at 78, where it's starting to get towards the claw, but the claw's numbers up above. If we look at the claw, at this point, we probably have our claw to level, let's say 5. And so we've got 86 power and 52 accuracy versus, even if we got the claw to level 5, 80 and 50. So we're starting to get there when we get to level 5, where we're starting to match up 80 and 50 versus 86 and 52. So we're starting to get close to it. So topspin and backspin, we got 8 and 100% backspin. With the claw at level 5, we've got 8 and 7 or 14 and 78. So we have a little more topspin than the thorn, but the backspin, there's 78 sometimes is just not going to get it done. So it still hasn't matched up with it. It doesn't really match up with it until you get to level 9. So up to that point, you can use it as a utility club, because I can tell you when you get to 78 or 83, when you get into that number right there at level 6, even at the 78, realistically, there's most of the holes that you would need to use that much backspin that you can get it done with 78. You can get it done with 64, but 78 and above, you can definitely get pretty much any shot that you wanted to get done with your thorn. You could do a pretty good college try at it with 78. So when you get it up into this level 5, then it's worth looking at as your utility club, where this is the club that you bring in your primary bag just to get it done. So it doesn't really matter like where you ended up out there. You can get it done with the claw. When you get it to level 5, you're pretty much in that neighborhood. You got a good strong number at 50. That's one of the things I like about the claws. It has solid numbers in key spots. So with accuracy at 50, it's 2.0 per ring. So it's a really easy number to adjust for. And when it gets maxed out, it goes through this little growing phase thing from level 7, 8, and 9. But when it gets maxed out, it's at 75. Just a nice, good, firm, strong number. 100% curl. It does get up to 97% backspin. So as you get this claw somewhere around level 5, you can start thinking about like, hey, I could upgrade it all the way to level 5. And at level 5, it's one of those clubs that you could bring in bags to fill the gaps for both of these. the Thorn and the Hornet. But if you're playing in a tournament, you would then switch to either the Thorn or the Hornet, whichever one was the most appropriate for that hole. Because now you know what the wind is, where you're at, where you're trying to lay up, and you got it all set up. Now you can bring out a specific club just to match that up. But if you're playing a one-on-one, the claw at level 5 becomes a club that, as far as like how I went up the progression, I started using it around that time period because it was a great club. And we only had one bag back then, so it was a lot more. You didn't have bags that you could set up and customize. But typically when you're customizing your bags, you're looking at driver and wood, that upper combination to get you in the right spot. And so you usually, like, you're only at the right in the tournament section where you're picking out different, you're getting that detailed where you're getting to your short iron. So overall, claw's great. Now I will say that if you get your Falcon, let's look at how Falcon matches up to a claw, because I think that's its nearest competitor, like overall stats. So 76, let's look at maxed out 87 power versus a Falcon's 88. So they're pretty similar. 75, 75, right at the numbers. 73 topspin, 90 topspin. So if you're in one of those spots with your, you can flatten that out, kind of like, you know, you may be in some of those spots where you could flatten that out and pull it back, put on some topspin to get some ball guide read so that you could really kind of funnel it to the hole depending on the hole that you're on. Lots of topspin on one of these clubs is not a bad deal. Backspin at 97, backspin with the Falcon at 78. So now we're back where we were talking about in level 5 of the claw, where, hey, this is starting to take, we could have this in our bag because it can do most of what a Thorn can do, except on those holes when we're playing in tournaments at 78. So a Falcon ends up at 78. So it's right there as far as the backspin goes. Curl 98 versus 100, they're about the same. Ball guide 4.2 versus 3.2, that's huge on a short iron, because if you're trying to feed that ball up in, you know, once again, short iron for me is accuracy and ball guide. Those are keys, and then you have to see how it fits. So as you're going up the scale, you know, really the Falcon would probably win it out for me. Because of that ball guide. I mean, that ball guide, I mean, really kind of looking at these two clubs, the claw maxed out and the Falcon maxed out, the one screaming number that's on there, even though there's a little teeny bit more topspin in the Falcon, and but the backspin number, that's not as key as the backspin number. 100, or excuse me, 97 backspin and 78, that's the one thing the claw's got the advantage on. But that 4.2 ball guide would probably make me switch to a Falcon if I had a maxed out Falcon. And that'd probably be, unless there was a specific hole that really required accuracy, I'd pop out my Hornet. And if there was a specific hole that really required backspin, I'd probably pop out my claw, because my claw would match up with it and give me the same accuracy, and I wouldn't have an accuracy change. And the distance is about the same, so it's going to respond very much like the Falcon. The only difference is I got 97 backspin. So if I had the Falcon's going to become, once again, kind of a utility club that you're going to use just like the claw, but when you're on specific holes in tournaments, you're going to still switch between the Hornet. But now, instead of the Thorn, in my opinion, you'll switch to the claw. All right. And then the Golden Shot short iron. I don't know if we've ever used the Golden Shot short iron on any shots. Maybe we have. Not very powerful. Well, it's more powerful than our Kingfisher when we started. 70 accurate. That's not bad. That's decent accuracy. 50 topspin, as we know. A lot of these clubs don't start off with 50 topspin, so that's great topspin. Backspin, 50 backspin. That's a decent number. You can get a ton done with it. If you could start the game off with this club right here, that'd be great. 30 curl, 1.7 ball guide's a weakness. That's a weakness. All right. That was a bunch of stuff on short irons. hopefully there was some stuff that you learned on them. I probably focused more on the upper level ones down here at the bottom, but the deal is you're going to get to that point really quick. So don't invest a ton into these lower tier clubs, because as you go up, my practice account, I haven't gone past Tour 4. I have a couple things from Tour 5 just from the golden shot, but those, once you get to Tour 4 and you get that thorn and you start working on that thorn, you're going to switch between, there's going to be some holes in tournaments that you're going to get to, and you're going to switch at the very beginning from your Kingfisher to your runner, and you're going to kind of only play the Kingfisher and the runner. In most cases, I'm going to take the Kingfisher because it's more accurate. As a one-on-one, club, I'm going to take the Kingfisher. And as my backup club behind it, I'm going to take a Saturn, because the Saturn's going to give me the backspin. If I can't get it done with the Kingfisher because of red line and I don't have any topspin, I can get it done with the Saturn. And so once I get the Kingfisher, I'm going to start using it really quick. And then I may have to switch to my Apache on some holes just to give me a little bit of topspin and get me a little bit of stuff until I get my runner. And then I'm pretty much going to just play the Kingfisher and the runner. And then when I need the backspin, I'll play my thorn. But once I get a Hornet, this lower tier is pretty much out of the game. And it's you're not going to engage those anymore. Although the Kingfisher, when it gets to level 4, or excuse me, not level 4, level 8, it does get to 94 accurate. It's got some good accuracy, 27 topspin, 4.4 ball guide. So if we compare it to our Hornet, let's go to the Hornet, go to the Kingfisher. So you can see it's going to get a little bit of power, but it's not going to have the 88. It will pick up some accuracy and be very similar to the Hornet. Its top spins right there, its back spins right there already. So it's got a little teeny bit more backspin. And like I said, I hardly ever use topspin, so that topspin's fine with me. 100% curl versus 88, and ball guides vary. It's 4.0 right here. What's it going to be when it gets maxed? 4.4. So it almost, once you get your Kingfisher maxed out, other than power, that's 79 power, it really becomes you can go back and take a second look at it when it goes from that 88 to that 94. It now becomes a club that you can really take a look at. And I can tell you, if I had extra points, if they gave us points, like if we got this Kingfisher maxed out and got it to level 7 and then was able to get it to level 8, I would definitely want to bump that accuracy up to 95. I'd put one of my points on 95 and I put all the rest of the points on power and try and bump that power up so that I could really match up down here, because it's not a bad club once it gets maxed. But you'll forget about it once you get your Hornet because of the accuracy. You won't need to use it anymore, and you won't get the topspin on this club until it gets so far developed that it'll just take you forever to get there. Let's make sure I didn't forget any of you. I know I went by the Apache fast, but I'm telling you, you're going to go through the Apache fast. Just get through whatever you got to get through on it. But the second that you can get in a Kingfisher and a runner, start using that combination of clubs on tournament holes, and only occasionally use the Apache. But you're going to go through your Apache and you're not going to, when you get it maxed out, it'll be an afterthought. All right. That was a little bit of info on short irons. All right. Thanks for watching.